Thunder coverage team here to dissect, slice and dice this Thunder team. I'm joined by columnist Barry Trammell, Thunder beat writer Eric Horn, Thunder beat writer Brett Dawson, and after a bit of a slide by the Thunder, we saw a fantastic game last night as James Harden and the Rockets came to town, and unbelievably, the Thunder manages a 105-103 win, a great game. But before we get to the on-court stuff, guys, we've got to talk off-court. Do we need to start calling him Sir Russell Westbrook? He's about to be inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, Barry.
Well, he won't be the least qualified person in there, I can promise you. He's been here, 9 years? Going on 9 years. He is famous. I'd say put him in. I got no problem with it.
I don't think they're going to rescind it now. I think they're ready to go. And Michael Jordan is his induction.
Now, that was a curveball. Anybody seen that coming?
Michael Jordan?
Yeah, that Michael Jordan was going to present.
Well, I mean,
you could see Sam Presti or
right.
Steven Adams, all kinds of good.
I don't know if you could have predicted that anybody would have Michael Jordan come out to Oklahoma to do anything, but it's a great honor, obviously, and you know, Russell Westbrook's now the face of the Jordan brand, so it makes sense for Jordan, not just from a respect for Russell Westbrook's standpoint, but from just promoting his brand standpoint too.
Yeah, well, and I don't know who you might have otherwise expected him to do his induction, but Brett,
Kevin Durant? we thought.
Kevin Durant, anyone?
Yeah, that's what we thought.
The reciprocation, that was how it was last year when Kevin Durant goes in, Russell Westbrook's his guy, but I mean, this is obviously a big night for Russell Westbrook, but I mean, I think it speaks to, you know, just how far this guy has gone when it comes to national and international fame right here in Oklahoma City. I mean, that's no small thing, I wouldn't think, for Russell Westbrook or for the Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, I think it says something about the degree to which he's been branded, and he's branded himself, because really Michael Jordan is the king of that. He's the king of branding. So if you've got that guy coming in, it means that you mean a lot to the Jordan brand, and therefore you mean a lot to Michael Jordan's business interests. And you know, Victor Oladipo talked today about the fact that you do build a relationship with Michael Jordan when you're on that brand, and so I'm sure that they have talked. The one thing I think is so interesting about Russell Westbrook, old-time guys, retired players, even more recently retired players, guys like Doc Rivers, who's now coaching in the league, there's such a respect for him that the Michael Jordan thing kind of fits in a way.
Yeah.
You know what they love about Westbrook? He's not into this new age of, hey, let's go vacation with the guy on the other team.
Right.
Let's not go to dinner the night before with the guy from the other team we're trying to beat in the Western Conference playoffs. He's trying to take your head off every night. And I don't know if it was that way in the old days, but that's the way the old guys like to think it was.
Right.
Yeah.
So they love that about Westbrook.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, a lot of people may wonder, well, you know, why Kevin Durant? Why? And this isn't the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. Let's just make sure that people understand that. We're not talking about a Sports Hall of Fame. We're talking about the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. Tonight, the induction class includes Kelly O'Hara, who's a Broadway star, a Tony Award winner. She's going in. So, you know, country singers, politicians. I mean, it's all over the board. Kevin Durant went in last year, and I think a lot of us said, well, this is just trying to keep Kevin Durant here. Mm-hmm. And then they put Russell Westbrook in. Well, maybe that was part of the equation. And yet, I don't think you can argue against either of these guys being in this state's Hall of Fame. I mean, I guess you could say, well, wait till they retire, but there's been it's really hard to find many other people along the way that have had the impact on Oklahoma's brand than these two guys, Eric.
Yeah, and you say impact. I mean, even with Kevin Durant leaving and going to Golden State, you can't deny the impact that he had in the time he was here. I mean, he cultivated this basketball franchise that's among one of the best in the NBA now. Mm-hmm. And you can say the same for Russell Westbrook. And so those two go hand in hand. And I think that the award is justified in that sense because these guys are two of the biggest stars in the NBA. And again, even though Kevin Durant's not here anymore, you can't erase the fact that he was just a huge influence while he was.
Right. And I last year before Kevin Durant went in, I sort of went looking for some answers as to just how far and wide his notoriety and his link to Oklahoma goes. I ended up talking to Bart Connor, who's a great ambassador for the state of Oklahoma, Olympic gymnast, now married to Nadia Comaneci, living in Oklahoma. And he said, in the only way that Bart Connor can, in a totally low-key way, they were somewhere like Bahrain, talking to the Crown Prince of Bahrain, and like the first question, he said, "How's Kevin Durant? How is the Thunder?" Just places you don't think about Oklahoma City, the Thunder, Oklahoma going. These guys have taken the brand, and I guess now the only question that's left is, what does Russell Westbrook wear tonight?
I think he's going to play it by the book. I don't think it's
Wait,
going to be
wait,
anything
whoa.
wild. There aren't going to be any ponchos. This is a black tie affair. There aren't going to be any hats with wooden brims. He's going to just wear a nice tapered suit and be the smooth, well-dressed Russell Westbrook that we see from time to time.
What?
You want me to go out on a limb and say that the guy's going to wear something crazy? This Michael Jordan's coming to town.
I think Barry
man.
thinks he's going out on a limb.
I don't know, but it would be disappointing if he did go mainstream. It would be disappointing to us all if he goes mainstream.
I think it's like the Oscars, right? He's gonna go simple. He's gonna go. It's not the MTV Awards. It's the Oscars. He's gonna dress. I think he'll be fairly conservative by Russ standards. I think conservative. I think he's gonna be black tux and a bow tie.
Black tie does not mean black tux. It means tux. Why couldn't he wear like a gold tux or a rose-colored tux?
Coral,
or
salmon.
Or one of these sky blue tuxes. You got options.
I wouldn't put it past
I've actually
him.
been to tux stores. You've got options.
I've actually been.
He can pull
Barry
the,
Trammell, fancy pants.
he can pull the Dumb and he and Jordan are going to walk in with the Dumb and Dumber, orange and blue with the top hats and the canes, and they're going to be fencing each other as they walk into the Cox Convention Center. Wouldn't that be it?
Now the top, they could go ultra. They could go ultra
Old school?
Old school.
Okay.
And go the top hat and canes. Now that would be cool.
I would absolutely love the top.
That would be cool.
I like the top hat idea.
I think anything is possible. I really do. I mean, I don't. I mean, I could see him going sort of straight-laced, but at the same time, doesn't he have to do something? He has to do
How about-
something. He's Russell Westbrook, for crying out loud.
How about go Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday? Go Old West. Long duster and a Stetson.
Does Kevin Durant have any other weird like hot side hobbies that he could dress up? Do that kind of costume?
Photographer. I think, yeah. I don't know, but that's a great question.
Let me say this in defense of Russell and Kevin, both going into the Hall of Fame. Of course, they went in as sort of a message, hey, we love you guys, you're part of us. But if you don't like Durant and Westbrook in this organization, change the name. There's never been, since possibly Will Rogers, anybody that's been more famous than these two guys in relation to Oklahoma, for the reasons you talked about.
Yeah. So I expect a full report on the apparel to you guys who are going tonight. So
Apparel watch.
apparel watch, please. That's really what I care about most. I know Michael Jordan's here, but I want to know what Russell Westbrook is wearing. So, all right, enough with the off-the-court stuff. Let's get to some on-court stuff. Rockets in town on Wednesday night, a big win for the Thunder, and maybe we can talk about Andre Robertson and his defense on James Harden, but maybe more important to the long-term health of this team, Victor Oladipo, and what he was able to do offensively. Has he broken out? Has he figured it out, Barry? Is he now gonna move forward playing more like we saw him play Wednesday night against the Rockets?
Well, I assume not. I mean, it's a pretty high standard. He's playing at a Russell Westbrook standard last night. I mean, double-double with 5 assists and really good shooting. But if he could play like that more often, it really helps. Because, go back to October, we talked about what this Thunder team could do, what it would look like if it had a good year. Well, the answer is a dynamic backcourt with Oladipo and Westbrook. And, of course, you don't have to worry about the dynamism. That's not a word. I'm losing the
magnetism.
Whatever. The dynamic element with Westbrook. Haven't had it with Oladipo that much. Need it more. Last night was a great sign.
We expected this guy to be the running mate.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to be if the Thunder's going to be successful. I mean, every team that's going to be a viable candidate in the Western Conference is going to have 2 guys that they can rely on every night. Some have 3, some have 4, like the Golden State Warriors. So if Victor Oladipo is not putting together more consistent performances like he did last night, and it don't even necessarily have to be 29 and 10 and 5. They could be 20 and 5 and 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
But he has to be more consistent. He has to be more aggressive going to the basket and mixing in some drives to the basket with the spot-up opportunities he has, because we're not going to see 5 of 7 shooting from 3 from Victor Oladipo every night. He's just not that good of a shooter.
Yeah.
So he's got to be assertive and be able to get to the basket and attack. And when he's doing that, it's going to open up so many more things offensively for the Thunder.
Well, is this a case, Brett, in your mind, of him getting comfortable as a spot-up guy, or have they started to find some ways to maybe spring him and get his confidence going where that spot-up game is maybe a little bit more effective?
I think more than anything, it's him finding out how much easier his life is when he plays with Russell Westbrook. He's finding a role that plays off Westbrook as opposed to the role he had in Orlando where he had the ball in his hands. What's kind of interesting is that where I think he struggled a little bit is when Westbrook's off the floor. And now all of a sudden he goes back to a role that's much more like what he's played. I think walking that line is a little difficult sometimes. You've got to be more of a spot-up guy, playing off Westbrook when he's in the game. When you're running that second unit, you're a little bit more of a point guard. You have to look for your shot. At the same time, you got to drive it a little bit more. I still think he's finding his way. That's why I think we're still going to see ups and downs. We're going to see these games, and we're going to see some games where he struggles a little bit.
You know, as Oladipo seems to be playing better offensively, it's even more important because Steven Adams has really struggled, guys, offensively. Is there something wrong? I mean, he's got that wrapped hand. Is that all? It's
gotta be the hand.
Do we have to chalk it up to that, guys?
I just think he's got to make layups. I mean, now I do think that there is something there in terms of it affecting him finishing because he's not dunking the way he was earlier in the season. I mean, the way he palmed the ball and was able to dunk and wrap around and do some of the things he was doing in the first few games of the season, you're not seeing that anymore. And he looks a little apprehensive when he's going up for layups. But that being said, it's still a layup. I mean, finish your shots around the rim. You don't have to flush everything, and just be more assertive in the way that you're doing it. But you know, he's dealt with this stuff before, and that's one of the concerns that we had about this Thunder team going into this season. If any of these guys have any kind of significant injuries over an extended period of time, it's really going to affect them, and particularly Steven Adams. Now, it didn't affect him defensively late in the game last night. He had a key block and he had a defensive rebound, but he's a guy that's going to have to be in that 10 to 12 point range for the Thunder to really maximize what they're doing.
Well, and I was going to say, this is not a knock on his defense because I feel like that has stayed at a pretty consistent level, but clearly this is a guy that they want, you know, to be scoring double digits, and to not have that in his arsenal right now, Brett, it just feels like, and I'm not saying that there's a fix because it may just be that it's going to take some time, but it really is a struggle right around the basket for him right now.
Yeah, you know, one of the things Billy Donovan said at the very beginning of the year was be careful how much you assume a big jump offensively for anybody because, you know, he pointed out that he'd had this situation in college before where players, you expect them to take on a different role because maybe somebody graduates, maybe somebody goes pro early, you think they're going to step into a bigger offensive role, but that's easier said than done. A lot of what Steven Adams got last year was because of the way defenses had to play Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook together. Now that's taken away, you got to find some new ways to score. None of that stuff is an overnight process. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, and it seems like that, you know, they're obviously the 4-game losing streak was no fun to watch, but they're still, I mean, with a few exceptions, they're still playing some pretty good basketball. Now, last night, he wasn't the only one missing shots around the basket, though. Kind of became now I'm struggling to find the words. Became a big problem for the Thunder. They missed some shots that they're going to otherwise make on most nights. I don't know what was going on.
Robertson missed a bunch right at the basket. Westbrook missed.
Cantor even
about
missed
the
a
easiest
few.
shot he'll get all season, a little layup. So yeah, it was of course that's what happens when you shoot 71% in the first quarter. I mean, the gods even things out at some point. So you know, it was a tough night in stretches. It was a great night in other stretches, but you know, at the end they won this game the way they're going to have to win games, which is they got to lock down on defense. And when you hold the Rockets, who can literally just flip the ball, you know, bounce the ball off the scorer's table and it'll sometimes go in the basket. When you hold them scoreless for 6 minutes down the stretch, you've done about all you can do to win an NBA basketball game.
Well, before we dive a little deeper into that, let me remind everybody you're watching Thunder Thursday here from the Oklahoma newsroom. And guys, you know, I think that it's been pretty well established. I mean, as this team grows and evolves, there's going to be some rough patches. That 4-game losing streak, I know probably freaked out some people, but at the same time, that's kind of part of the evolution of this team. But Brett, how important in your mind was getting a win last night against Houston?
I think as big as an early season NBA game can be in a lot of ways. Even, you know, Russell Westbrook, who's a pretty even-keeled guy, said it's a big win. It was an important win. It wasn't just that they had lost 4 in a row, although that was a big part of it. They'd lost 3 in a row at home, and they just hadn't played well. They looked really bad against Detroit. Defensively, they'd hit a rough patch that, you know, their defense had been pretty reliable early. It was going through some rough patches. They didn't need to lose a game that way last night. I think it was significant just to get a win from that standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, and Eric, the defense, as Barry mentioned, I mean, you can start with Andre Robertson, but it goes a lot deeper than that. They played some defense down the stretch of that game last night.
Yeah, they needed to because the first 3 quarters they were lacking. And
Wait, the basketball god said,
yeah,
okay.
the basketball gods
Yeah,
again. But that fourth quarter was a good sign, and despite the fact that they tried to throw the game away a couple of different times, with Russell Westbrook trying to throw that outlet pass to Steven Adams on the break, and then Harden flubbing the ball away. They played the way they need to consistently down that stretch. I think that the Rockets were maybe like 1 of 11 from 3 in that fourth quarter. So, I mean, things evened out there. But another important point for the Thunder was that they started off well last night, too. Mm-hmm. And the past 2 games against the Magic and the Pistons, they looked so flat. They looked really flat and listless when it came to both ends. And last night, they really started off well offensively and shot the ball extremely well, and that was fueled by Victor Oladipo.
Does anybody want to take up the case for Andre Robertson? I mean, we all haven't covered the Thunder. Hear from fans all the time, whether via email, chats, any sort of circumstances. People want to ask, why is Andre Robertson out there? As I wrote last night and appeared this morning in the paper, if you have any questions, just remember last night, James Harden, 13 points in a season that he has just been going crazy. But, I mean, I'm sure I've seen better defensive performances, but that was near the top for me, Barry.
He turned James Harden into an old-fashioned point guard.
Yep.
James didn't even want to shoot by the end of the game. I mean, he was just looking to get rid of the ball, and to his credit, he was setting guys up well. 12 assists, I think, for Harden. So Robertson literally just sort of broke the spirit of James Harden. And I told the guys earlier, you guys weren't here yet. If Andre Robertson wants to play defense like that, every 4th series on offense, he can drop kick the ball towards the basket, and it's okay with me.
Go ahead.
Well, two reasons Andre Robertson should be on the floor, and you saw it last night. One was in the post game when I asked James Harden about Andre Robertson's defense, and James Harden had 3 words. He said, "I miss shots." But you could clearly see that James Harden didn't want to have any of that conversation, and there was some clear frustration. Another reason is when James Harden missed his last jumper and Andre Robertson blocked the shot, and he thought he got fouled, they were still complaining about it on the other end when Andre Robertson caught the alley-oop from Russell Westbrook, so much that Patrick Beverley came off the bench. He wasn't even active. Our favorite arch nemesis, Patrick Beverley, came off the bench.
He was an arch nemesis librarian last night. He had on this
a
very
great
sort
sweater.
of great
It was
sweater
It was a fantastic sweater. But Patrick came off of the bench and was still complaining about the foul on James Harden that I don't know if it was a foul or not, but the point is, Andre Robertson is a thorn in teams' sides. Yeah. James Harden came into the league, arguably the best point guard in the league in this early season, along with Westbrook, and he made James Harden, as Barry said, into a true point guard. And I mean, that's something that's invaluable. We saw it in the game against Toronto when Andre Robertson locked up DeMar DeRozan for those first couple minutes. He comes off the floor, DeRozan gets hot, next thing you know, he's got 37 points.
Yeah.
We saw it in the Western Conference Finals last year when Andre Robertson blocks Klay Thompson's shot 3 times in a game. He comes out to start the fourth quarter. Klay Thompson gets hot. Next thing you know, the series is over.
Yeah.
So it's like, if people can't understand what Andre Robertson brings to the table now, then I don't know when they will.
Yeah.
Here's something to quantify. Billy Donovan said that Andre Robertson guarded James Harden in 37 pick and roll situations last night. 37 times. Now, they chart how often you defend it the right way. Doesn't mean you stop him, doesn't mean he doesn't get an assist or a basket. How many times did you do it exactly right? Out of those 37 times, 34 or 35, Billy Donovan said he did exactly the right things in pick and roll. And he told us today, if you get to 70% in a game, that's really, really good. So to get to 34 or 35 out of 37 times on a guy as challenging to guard as James Harden, really remarkable.
You know, I thought it was interesting. I think Billy Donovan made reference to the concentration that it takes to play the way that Andre Robertson played last night. And I think it speaks to what you're talking about. But, you know, Robertson was talking after the game about how you have to defend Harden, where you show your hands. You know, that you show the referees, here are my hands. You know, we saw Anthony Morrow guard Harden once late in the first quarter. He gets his arm underneath Harden, and Harden does what Harden does. He clamps down on it, foul on Morrow, Harden's going to the line. To me, to be able to defend the pick and roll, to know how he has to guard, and then to do it so often. He didn't pick up a foul till more than 4 minutes into the second half. Unbelievable.
We were sitting there at one juncture in the game Harden came back in, and we're looking at the Thunder lineup, and we say, who's going to guard this guy right now? And then we say, and he's like, maybe Alex Abrines. And I look at him like, are you crazy? And the next thing you know, Harden's got Alex Abrines in the post, and he turns around and scores.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't discredit what Andre Robertson does. Now that being said, if this guy winds up getting traded, I mean, what are they going to do? He's an unrestricted. I mean, he's going to be a restricted free agent. We've seen this happen before. I mean, is the Thunder going to be one of these teams that says, like, we're not going to be able to afford to give this guy an extension in the summer? I don't think they're going to trade him. I don't have any inside knowledge of that. I don't think they should trade him because he's so valuable defensively, and who are you going to stick on other people's top player? But it is going to be something interesting to see.
Here's the good news about the future for Andre Robertson, if you like him in Thunder Blue. Teams generally don't pay big money for defense. So it's not like he's going to go out there and get a contract offer the way Canner got one from Portland, summer before last.
Yeah.
So if the Thunder wants to keep him at a decent price, I think they'll have a shot to.
Yeah, it was remarkable to see. I think he was off the floor during that Morrow play that I referenced earlier, and there were, maybe it was a different point in the game last night, but Harden had 3 straight possessions where when Robertson was off the floor, he shot. It was clearly him saying, if I can get into a rhythm, maybe while he's on the bench, I can get myself going. And it didn't happen. And then when shots needed to come from him late in the game, he didn't have any ability to get it going. And then Robertson was really on him. So just impressive stuff. And if anybody wants to get in on any live chats or any emails to try to tell us about how much they complain about Andre Robertson, I don't think any of us want to hear it. I don't know if anybody wants to hear it.
And people don't want to hear it, but he's gotten better offensively.
Yeah.
He really has. I mean, he's upped his. People say he's hesitant to shoot. Well, you know what? If Alex Abrines is standing over there and he's a really good three-point shooter, you'd probably be hesitant to shoot too if you're Andre Robertson. Yeah. Alex Abrines is a better three-point shooter. Of course, he's going to pass it to him. He's upped his shot, his shot attempts 2 a game from last year. He's making more threes than he ever has. He's shooting actually a pretty good percentage from 3 in a small sample size. So it doesn't really make sense for people to say that, this guy, he's never going to be, like, he's just an incremental progression in terms of his offense. Like, he's never going to be a knockdown shooter, but he has made strides. Yeah. And for people to not acknowledge that, it's kind of ridiculous.
And Billy's done a nice job finding ways for him to get incorporated into the offense. He's not just standing in a corner waiting for somebody to throw him the ball.
All right, guys, before we wrap this up, let's look ahead a little bit. As the Thunder's stretch of home games continues, the wacky November. I don't know how fans are doing it. Barry and I were talking about this off camera before. That's like 4 games a week, this homestand. Again, Friday night, Brooklyn's in town. Sunday, the Pacers are in town. Then finally a road game with the Lakers early next week on Tuesday. Obviously winnable games for this team. Is it possible we're going to see a return to a little bit of a winning streak here, Eric?
You would like to see a return to a winning streak. I mean, you got a Brooklyn team coming in that's completely depleted. They're not going to have Jeremy Lin. And for a team to say that they're not going to have Jeremy Lin, I mean,
that's important.
And that be a critical thing. Like, not that Jeremy Lin's a bad player, but he's not Russell Westbrook by any means.
Yeah.
So they should win that game. Indiana's a winnable game, and Indiana's got a good squad. But and then going on the road against an exciting Lakers team and Sacramento, who's Sacramento, and then you got to play Denver next week too. This is a stretch of a week where the Thunder can really get a chance to rip off some wins, and they should, because as we've talked about before, things are going to get treacherous when it comes to January around the turn of the year, and the Thunder should be able to pile up some wins in this period.
Is there, guys, as you think about this Thunder team, and I think during the losing streak, there was, obviously points where you realize where the flaws were in this team. We're not yet anywhere close to the trade deadline, but there's still this ongoing talk about, will the Thunder do something? Brett, I am not asking you to predict when or if, but in your mind, is it a 75% chance that something changes in, say, the next, month? What's sort of the feeling about what the Thunder's going to need to do?
I don't know how high I would go for in the next month. I think there's a better than 50-50 chance that something happens before the deadline. It just seems to me that because they're going to be strapped going forward in terms of trying to sign free agents, because trades are going to be their best bet to kind of make a significant improvement, because they're going to get Cameron Payne back at some point theoretically, who could be a chip in a move, and because there might be some guys out there like Rudy Gay, who's going to be the name that we come back to all the time. There are some guys guys out there who play that small forward position who could get them a little bit of scoring. I still think there's a good chance they're going to make a change. They are such a limited offensive team. I think they're going to need to improve that over the course of this season in some way or another.
Well, and I asked that in reference to the schedule because while there's some winnable games here and they could sort of get the wins going in the right way, there's still this looming question of, can this be the long-term answer? And it seems like, Barry, that it's pretty unlikely that this is the roster that they finish the season with. It feels like that's almost an impossibility, really.
And you know what? Even when they're riding high, they make moves. So, I mean, to me, it would be a stunner if they don't make a move between now and mid-February. Of course, they've already made one. I mean, for crying out loud. Ersan Ilyasova, we barely knew thee.
That's right.
But, to me, it's pretty obvious that they're likely to make a move. This is not the roster they want.
Sure.
It's not the roster Sam Presti envisioned. It's sort of what they've been left with in the wake of the Durant defection. So you just be as competitive as you can and see what moves you can make. I can tell you this, I don't think they're going to make a trade thinking this is going to help us in May or late April. If they make any move, it's what's this going to do for us next season or the season beyond.
Yeah.
And how to optimize the time that you have with Russell Westbrook under contract. I mean, that's going to be critical for them, too. To be able to position themselves going into this offseason to have a really good team around Russell Westbrook or a team that he feels he can go forward with. And I think also, I mean, not just a trade coming up in the next however many months or before the deadline, but the bringing back Cameron Payne.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really important for this team in terms of
Just it can't hurt, can it?
The second unit will get better. I think Cameron Payne really showed strides in summer league and in last season as well. And just talking to him in the offseason and during the times this season, he seemed to have a maturity to him that's different. And it's not that Cameron Payne wasn't ever mature, but there was clearly some collegiate playfulness when he came into the league, and he's still fun. But I think he's really going to help this team once he comes back. He's going to give them some different options, not just with the second unit, but I mean, he's going to make life easier on Victor Oladipo. He's going to make life easier on Russell Westbrook, and he's another creator that the Thunder just desperately needs.
Yeah, that second unit had times last night where it was just it wasn't necessarily going to come down to first unit. It was how much was that second unit going to give up a deficit. Okay, before we go, I don't know who's going tonight to the Hall of Fame, but since we were talking about Russell Westbrook, oh, you're all going. Wow. Okay, since we were talking about clothing, what's everybody wearing? Any top hats for this crew?
We rented those top hats for our preview. Do we still have those around? We never got to use those. We never got to use those. We should have just kept those for tonight. That would have been perfect.
I wonder if Darnell's got those hiding in his desk anywhere.
We've actually been shot down on Russell Westbrook wearing a top hat before, so maybe we should assume no top hat.
No top hat?
I'm actually not staying for the dinner. I'm going to talk to Michael Jordan before the dinner, so this is what you see. What you see is what you get. Yeah.
Any tuxes for you guys?
Dark suit.
Hard pass on the tuxedos.
Man, all right.
Billy Donovan suggested I go to Men's Warehouse today, actually. He really did.
He did suggest that.
You need to call ahead, Billy, and, let them know my measurements, possibly pay for the tuxedo.
Said he didn't know anybody, so for whatever else Billy Donovan's got going for him, no connections at Men's Warehouse.
Oh, well. Good to know. All right, news you can use right here on Thunder Thursday. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.